السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. مغفر الله. الحمد لله نستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا من أمرنا ومن يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما صليت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم صل على محمد وأزواجه وذرياته وأصحابه الكرام وعلى بيته أجمعين. Alhamdulillah for another day. Today I wanted to kind of discuss, this is the month of Rabi Awal, and this is also the month of the Walid of the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And in the Islamic world, every year at this time there is a great controversy on the Mawlid or not the Mawlid, and again, being Muslim and being African American, all of these things, I adopted Islam 40-something years ago, and alhamdulillah, during that period of time I was able to study. I am not an alim, I'm not a scholar, my Arabic is imperfect, my knowledge is imperfect. I'm pretty sure that there are people out there way much more charismatic, way much more knowledgeable than I am. I'm just a humble servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And being as such, I still, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, if you know something, then you can't, you're not supposed to hide it, because it's about a cut of Allah. Whatever we learn and the things that we know, and as long as it's based on dalil and it's based upon the hujjah, proof, based on Quran and Sunnah of the life of the Rasulullah, the Sirah of the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or the Khulafat Rashidun, or even based upon the hadith of Hudayfa, who said it was asked the Rasulullah about the different generations, and the first 3 generations he said that they were saved, and then the 4th one, was not. Those, is very important because, number one, dealing with the subject matter of bid'ah, and you have the different groups. You have the Muhadithin and you have the Fuqaha. And the Muhadithin and the Fuqaha are supposed to be the legal jurist, just like a legal lawyer who interprets, like what we say in America, they could interpret the Constitution, and the Constitution for the believers is the Quran and the Hadith al-Sharif, Quran and Kareem, and Hadith al-Sharif, the noble and honorable traditions, and the noble and glorious Quran. So they're supposed to be able to do it, and the Muhadithin are supposed to be the experts in the traditions. And so, has been, and there will be continue to be a difference of opinion on the Mawlid and not. So first of all, I kind of want to deal with bid'ah. The Muhadithin always quote the hadith. It says every bid'ah leads you astray, and every bid'ah leads you astray, and everything that leads you astray leads you to the hellfire. And this hadith is true. This hadith is sahih. It is sound by our understanding of the classification of hadith. Mutasil hadith, the chain of narrators is consistent. There's no munkati. There's no munkati there. There's no break in the chain. So we acknowledge that this hadith is sound. There's no doubt about that. Now the question of what is bid'ah. Does every bid'ah lead astray? Then, in reality, everyday life, when we talk about that, then there's a lot of hypocrisy in that because of the fact that there is a lot of things that we participate daily as Muslims that the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not do, or the Khulafat Rashidun, or the Tabi'in, or the Tabu Tabi'in, and this is true. And so I kind of want to enumerate some of these things. First and foremost, during the life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, these things that was considered that he himself did not do, but his companions and his zumwal, the believers, associates that were with him did. Number one was and I would like to enumerate the first one that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did, but he sanctioned it as being mandub, mustahab, commendable. Was when Bilal radiallahu anhu, may Allah be pleased with him, that he would perform the 2 rakats of tahiyatul wudu. After wudu, he would perform this, and the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that he had seen Bilal in Jannah. Okay, that he had seen Bilal in Jannah. Another issue was as the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was making salat and was coming from ruku to back to qiyam, Sami Allahu liman hamida, and a brother said hamdan katiran tayyiban mubarakan fi, and the Rasulullah, it is reported even in Bukhari, that the Rasulullah said, who said this? And nobody said anything. He said, who said this? And nobody said that. And he said, who said this? And the third time the brother said, I said it, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, verily I've seen 40 angels writing it down. Okay, so these two things are very, very instrumental, and once we dissect it, we do the istipation, istisal, and istilal, to inference, that the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he did not have a problem, mushkala, with the believers taking initiative and being pious or glorifying Allah or praying extra. He did not have, he was not as stringent as we are 1,000 years later, be totally honest about it. And so just with those particular two things, those two examples of what companions did. And then there's a hadith that said, man sanna sunnah hasana wa yataba'uha ujuruhum ghayru wa man sanna sunnah sayyatu taba'uha, who follows it, ujuruhum, is a reward for them, ghayru, that doesn't cease. It says that whoever originates a sunnah and whoever follows it, they receive a reward that never ceases. A good sunnah, a sunnah hasana. And whoever originates a bad sunnah, an evil sunnah, and those who follow it, they receive a reward that doesn't cease. And so this hadith is also Sahih hadith that is in Jamia Tirmizi. And Allah knows best. When the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was saying this, he was not talking about. He was talking about a lot of a particular issue, I believe, and this was associating the partners in Allah knows best, associating the partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and trying to say this was Tawheed, when in fact it was not Tawheed. Then you have the things that was considered to be, and again, these things during the time of Rasulullah would have been considered to be today, in this day and age, better, because he himself didn't do it, but he approved it. He approved brothers taking the initiative and work. I mean, look at that. He didn't say, oh, you're a bad guy, that's going to lead you to hellfire. He didn't tell Bilal that. He didn't tell the other brother that. He didn't say that to the believers. He as one brother, Muhammad Amin Alim, told me that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was he was lenient on everything except for La ilaha illallah, except for associated partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala azza wa jalla. So these things right here, during his life. Another thing that after him, he said, Tabi'u sunati, badi sunatul khulafi rashidun muqtadi. He says, follow my sunnah, and after me, follow the sunnah, the traditions of the righteous Khalifa, the Khalifa Rashidun, the rightly guided Khalifa. And in saying that, that was a directive. That was a direct order to do this. Now here comes the conflict of interest. The conflict of interest is when the Prophet himself has said, after me, he said, follow my sunnah, the messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, say, follow me. And then he turns around and says, after me, after I die, after I'm gone, follow the sunnah of the Khalifa Rashidun. And then there's Muslims 1,000 years later say, no, don't follow that. So they are actually at odds and opposition, whether they're aware of it or not, with the Messenger of Allah, who gave a direct order, a directive to follow them after his death. And there was, and I will only give you a enumeration of during the Khalifa Rashidun, 3 things that were instituted during the Khalifa Rashidun. One of the things that was instituted was and the Ishrin Rakat, the 20 rakats of Taraweeh. And it was said that it was a sunnat, it was bid'ah, it was hasanah, it was a good sunnah, it was a good innovation. And for the Ishrin, the 20 rakats, another of the bid'ah was of the 2 adhan. Okay, because there were so many people, and getting to the masjid and performing the wudu and the ghusl and the work and everything. There was implemented the two adhan for the Jummah Salat. And another thing was the Salatu Qaidun Min An-Nawm. So these were 3 things during the time of the Khalifa Rashidun Muqtadin that were considered to be innovation. But how do you get away from not doing something when the Prophet Muhammad SAW gave you a direct order to follow them? When does our opinion supersede, our ray supersede the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when in fact he gave a direct order? After me, Badi, after me, Tabi'u, follow Sunnatu Khulafa Rashidun Muqtadin, the rightly guided caliph. Follow them. So to tell someone not to do this would be a direct order to not follow the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in this particular thing. So my point is not, Mawlid or not Mawlid. I'm talking about these things we talk about bid'ah. Even in the for us who were born speaking English, born speaking Farsi, born speaking Urdu, born speaking French, Spanish, speaking every language other than Arabiya. When the Quran was finally compiled and put into the order that we study it today, which some even say that's a bit, and Allah knows best. But they didn't have any diacritic marks because, as we know, that there was considered to be 7 different ways of recitation of the Quran. So there was no diacritic marks, and I do believe that the diacritic marks was added in the Quran for those people during the Umayyad Empire, which was, years after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We're talking about more than 80 years at least. And so that in itself became a bid'ah. Now, when we deal with other areas of a hadith, the sufuf, the classification of the hadith, whether we say the hadith is mutasil, which means that there's not a broken chain, they're all connected, all the way, the chains are all the way hadathana, Muhammad bin Az, hadathana, Ismail bin Wahab, and Abi Hurairah, and that's just an example of a chain that went all the way to, and Abi Hurairah called Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or it could be a masul hadith, samitu, a person say, I heard the Messenger of Allah. These classifications didn't exist during the time of the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they didn't exist during, in as far as classification during the time of the Khulafatul Rashidun, the fuqaha, the muhaddithin. So the classification, whether the hadith was musnad, whether it was masul, whether it was sahih, whether it was hasan, whether it was da'if, whether it was garib, all of these classifications, did not exist during the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The diacritic marks in the Quran didn't exist during the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so this hadith that says that every innovation leads one astray and everything that leads astray leads to hellfire, we have to see that, number one, that hadith is sahih, but is it being put in context? Is this hadith one size fits all? That is the question. And some say that this hadith is for everything. And clearly, when we point out these inconsistencies, that is not the case. That is not the case. And Allah knows best. The Fuqaha says that there are 5 categories of bid'ah. There's the haram bid'ah, and the haram bid'ah. You tell somebody to do 5 rakahs, ain't no such thing as that. The haram bid'ah, telling somebody it's obligatory to fast on Mondays and Thursdays, or the 13, 14, 15, oh my shit, to commit acts that are not, or to omit acts, so there's the haram bid'ah. And then there is the halal bid'ah. Think about even the curriculums that we have. They didn't have that during the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, not during the time of the Khalifa al-Rashidun. When we talk about Imam Shafi'i and Imam Hanbal and Imam Hanifa and Imam Malik, first of all, you have to understand, even with their books, they had a curriculum. These curriculums, and we understand that they didn't all get knowledge the same way, and some of them, based upon where they stayed, they had sound knowledge of what the Prophet did in certain areas and certain instances, but they all didn't have like what we have today, where we have the Siyasetta, the 6 authentic books with all of these thousands of hadith. They didn't have that. They had portions, and they taught from those particular portions, which became their curriculums and their standards, which was all based upon the life of the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the amr, the commands and the nahi of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so, with that being said, the curriculums that exist today, could they be considered bid'ah? There was no minarets during the time of Rasulullah, people getting up on a minaret and reciting, calling the azan. Is that a bid'ah? A madrasa, is that a bid'ah? There was no curriculum, there was no schools as we consider to be schools during the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But are these things halal? Are these things mubah? Are these things, are they makruh? Because it says haram, halal, mubah, mandub or mustahab, commendable, and makruh, 5, disliked bid'ahs. So, there's so many things that we utilize, like the Quran, utilizing the diacritic marks in reading the Quran, that didn't exist during the time of Rasulullah, and during the time of the Khalifa Rashidun. Also, the fact of the matter is that, again, the minarets and all these other things that we get. Bilal used to get up on top of the Kaaba. They're saying call the Azan. And Allah, is the best of knowers. So, things over a period of time progressed, and different progress occurred, that people did different things, and they added things that did not exist during the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Khalifa Rashidun. And the Fuqaha have a different opinion of this. This is not a thing between a heretic sects. This is just basically the Fuqaha are the Islamic jurists, which means they're the Islamic lawyers. And so their opinion on that particular issue is a little different than the Muhaddithin. And But again, there's no doubt that in the category of the Mawlid is something that did not exist during the first, we'll say, 300 years of the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We understand that, and so the question today is that many says that it is a bad bid'ah, and some say that it's a halal bid'ah, or it's a mandub, a mustahab bid'ah, and Allah knows best. Because, it's like Allah said, قَالَتَ يَهُودَ لَيْسَتِ النَّصَارَى شَيْئًا وَقَالَتَ نَصَارَى لَيْسَتِ يَهُودَ شَيْئًا وَهُمْ يَتْلُونَ الْكِتَابَ. It says, the Yahuda said that the Jews have nothing to stand on, and the Jews say that the Jews say the Christians have nothing to stand on, and the Christians say the Jews have nothing to stand on. But Allah said that He would judge between them on the day of Yom Kippur. And so the same thing with our differences of dialogue on these things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will deal with us on these areas. But there's nothing wrong with people having dialogue on differences of opinion in a respectable manner. And in doing so, the problem is with the hotheads. The problem is with the people who get emotionally perturbed, emotionally angst behind a difference of opinion. And so with that being said, it's very... we have to be able to try our best, inshallah, to understand the deen and to understand the reality behind the deen and what we do. So to the basic person, they just, I just follow the messenger. But the messenger gave a directive. And the directive was after me, follow my Khalifa Rashidun. So how do you get away from that? How do you get? Really, honestly, how do you, as a Muslim, say I'm going to discard that command of the Prophet, and I'm gonna follow what I think this scholar says because it makes more sense to me? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says if you obey the Prophet, you obey Him. That's what Allah says. If you obey the Prophet, so obeying the Prophet means obeying his commands. It doesn't mean selectively cherry picking His commands on what I feel that needs to be cherry picked, but it means accepting His commands in all ways. Wakabutu jamia akami, accepting all of His orders, accepting the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to the best of our capabilities. And if we can't do it, at least we acknowledge the fact that we understand that we should do it or we shouldn't do it. And don't be playing, don't be dressing up the truth. Don't dress it up. And don't try to cover it up. Because that is the reality behind the deen. The deen was sent, the haqq was sent in order to bring us to a fruition of understanding what we're supposed to do, why, and receiving the benefits of it. Inshallah. And we're all human beings, and at the end of the day, we don't always do and say the things that we should say, but we should at least have enough integrity within ourselves to understand that being imperfect and accepting and embracing when we are not on point. It's so funny, because we can get so full of ourselves, and we can lose ourselves if we don't stay humble as believers, and we get too arrogant. And piety is greater a lot of times than being knowledgeable. A lot of people can be knowledgeable and they can articulate things and just swoon people with their tongue. But that is not the deen. The deen is about giving. It's about loving. It's about learning. It's about teaching. But more than that, it's about being a good example. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, we have an option. Ayn for ayn, eye for an eye, sina wa sina, tooth for a tooth. Ear for ear, nose for a nose. Or you can remit it as a way of charity, if that's what you choose to do. So if a person is harsh with you, you can be harsh with them. If a person is soft with you, you can be soft with them. Or if a person is harsh with you, you can be mild, with them. That is your choice. This is the opportunity that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us. So, I would like to say in closing, inshallah, whether or not a person, I was talking to a brother, and I do agree that the Rasulullah sallallahu wasn't divine, but the Rasulullah sallallahu, he was given divine inspiration. And this inspiration exuded from his personality and his character to the point that for many people, the fact that they didn't see them as an ordinary guy, even the Kufa didn't, because they called him a sahir, they called him a sorcerer, they called him a magician. So they didn't even perceive him as an ordinary guy, just a guy. Because when you perceive the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam on the everyday status, then what we have a tendency to do is be able to try to put ourselves on that level, or either bring him down to the level where we subconsciously disrespect him, whether or not we recognize it or not, or subconsciously elevate ourselves to a particular position. The Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was blessed with divine insight. He was divine with wahi. He was blessed with this. And he was sent and accepted as a mercy to the world. And with that being said, his character, was not perfect, but it was very close to impeccable, meticulous. He's taught us, think about that, one man in 23 years taught a world, 1 billion people, almost every facet. Think about the mindset that one had to be every day, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was guiding him to the point that he was meticulous in everything, in every fashion. And we know this to be a fact because sometimes when he wasn't, by the fadl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if he didn't know a thing or something, he would wait until he received revelation, and that in itself, is something. With that being said, though, this big conversation, and it affects African Americans who have brought into Islam. This is a 1,000-year-old discussion between people from the Middle East and from the East and to the West. This is a new discussion, and everybody has an opinion. Unfortunately, a lot of people's opinions are based without any knowledge, except for the knowledge that their imams give them or their teachers give them. And so they're being spoon-fed information and not having the opportunity or the time or the knowledge or the resources, which is crazy because today with Google, today with the ability to download apps, today with the ability to study, inshallah, is it's almost like it says, if you don't know something, why would you, if you don't, lack of knowledge is not an excuse. It's not an excuse. So with that being said, the question about, we today are very, very conservative on areas that, fact of the matter is that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam wasn't. And so I guess that means that the only person who had the authority to sanction a thing that he himself didn't do was him. That's really what we're saying. And if we're saying that, then we have to understand that he sanctioned us to obey what the Khalifa Rashidun did. He gave a direct order. After me, he said, follow my sunnah, and after me, follow the sunnah of the righteous guided Khalifa. The righteous guided Khalifa. And do we do that? No, we question it. And apparently we say, in many terms that particular hadith or that particular saying from the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we don't have to do. Think about it. Just think about that particular thought pattern. I'm just a humble servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I ain't no alim. I ain't no mufti. I ain't none of that. I'm just a servant of Allah who is, I believe in my heart, is sincere, and have tried to look at different topics from every perspective, from 8 different corners, not just from one different corner, but from 8 different corners, and compare and contrast. The definition, the denotation, the connotation, the inference, the extirpation, the istinbat, the deduction from it. We deduct the fact that the Rasulullah sallallahu that when a person put in extra work, the Rasulullah and worshiping Allah, the Rasulullah sallallahu was happy. He said 40 angels. He's seen 40 angels right now with the brother when the brother said, Hamdam katiran tayyiban mubarakan fi. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu was jubilant. Today we want to cut his head off. Allah knows best. This is why the deen is dynamic, man, because Rasulullah sallallahu he's seen a Muslim take an initiative to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He didn't say that was bid'ah. He said 40 angels wrote down what you said. Think about it. And Allah knows best. 100 million scholars have said no, and 100 million scholars said yeah. I just say to you, have an open mind. Study the deen. Don't let it be spoon-fed to you either way, that way, or this way. Neither for nor against. I love Allah. I love the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I love the deen of Islam. I bear witness that Allah is my God, that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Muhammad ibn Abdullah is my prophet, and Islam is my deen. آمنت بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسوله واليوم الآخر وقدر خيره وشره. And that, that's what I believe. So all that other stuff, to me, when you study the deen, you study the Caliph al-Rashidun, you study the Umayyad Empire, you study the Abbasid Empire, you study Seljuk, the Fatimid, the Mughal Empire, the Safavid Empire, the Hafsid Empire, the Mamluk Empire. You study the Abid Empire, the Hafsids, the Nasrids in Africa, the Hafsid Empire in Africa. You study, these particular empires that exist. The Songhai Empire. You study all of these different empires, and you'll find many differences of thought pattern. You'll find all types of differences of opinion based upon ethnicities, based upon a hadith, based upon locality. You'll find different, and many of them you'll find their dalil. Now, whether you choose to accept their dalil because of the lack of knowledge, my people suffer from lack of knowledge. If you choose not to accept it because of lack of knowledge, then that's on you. But you can't read one book and then, become an alim. And then even with the curriculums that we have an opportunity to study from different scholars and the method. Just like if you go to University of South Carolina, they give you a bunch of things to study, and you become an academic individual, and you are taught a certain way, and then you teach a certain way. Based upon that, and you become a master of that particular thing, then you begin to teach your way based upon the many numerous books that you've read on that particular subject. But in closing, inshallah, brothers and sisters, this is the month of Rabi Awal. If you with the Mawlid, mashallah. If you're not with it, mashallah. But let me say this to you. Don't hate individuals. You love for Allah and you hate for Allah. And I hear brothers say that a lot of times. I love brothers for the sake of Allah, but I also love brothers Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put love in my heart. Allah said, وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا شَدًّا حُبًّا لِلَّهِ. Those who believe are passionate in their love for Allah. But how can you love Allah when you don't love your brothers, when you don't love His creation that you see every day? How can you love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala azza wa jalla when you don't see? How you do see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is through His creation. So I love my brothers and sisters for myself, and I also love them. What that means is that I love them conditionally. I love them based upon when they follow what Allah said, and I hate them. Bugdillah. I dislike them when they don't do what Allah say. I love them when they do what Allah say, and I don't love them when they don't do what Allah say. That's what that means. And I hear a lot of brothers saying that. It sounds cute. It sounds cute, and it sounds cool. It sounds Islamic. But understand what you're really saying. I love you conditionally, and I love all my brothers. I love them unconditionally, and I love them conditionally. I love them unconditionally in the fact that they're human beings and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created them. I love them conditionally based upon the superficial aspect on whether or not they are doing what they're supposed to do. Which means I like them, I don't like them. People say I like them as an individual, but I don't like the sin that they're committing, I don't like the commission of the sins that they're committing, or I don't like the omission of actions that they're omitting. And but I love them, fi sabilillah, in the cause of Allah, and I love them as human beings. And so I love my brothers and sisters, and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that it was a question asked of him. What if you see a brother oppressing a brother? What do you do? What do you see if your brother is oppressing a brother? What do you do? And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, you stop him. You stop him. Friends don't let friends drive drunk. You stop that person from doing what they're doing. And he says, if the brother's oppressing, if the brother's being oppressed, then you stop the person from oppressing that brother. So you stop the person from oppressing. How do you help your brother? You stop him from doing wrong. You stop it, inshallah. And according to the book of Iman, you stop him with your tongue. And then you stop him with your hands. And then if that doesn't work, you hate it, in your heart. Now, according to the book of Kitab al-Imara in Sahih Muslim, you stop him with your hands. Now, Brother Abdul Hamid Siddiq says that this is talking about, using the force of the government. Your hands is the force of the government, and you use your hands. You stop him with your hands, and if that doesn't work, then you stop him, with your tongue, which legislation and so forth. And then if that, then you hate it within your heart. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is charted a course for us to follow. And I love and I respect all of the imams. My opinion is not always on point with their opinion. I don't always agree with them. I don't necessarily disagree with them to the point where it changes my love for them. To me, a lot of this is actually theoretical. It's not practical. I mean, some of it's practical, but most of it's theoretical. Because when I die, I live for Allah. I don't live for nobody else. I live for Allah and His Messenger, and I try to do the best I can. And a lot of times I fall short as being a human being. But with that being said, brothers, I make dua, and sisters, I make dua for me. If you can help, please help and contribute to my program of trying to build this halfway house, and my program called From the Heart, Min al-Qalb, From the Heart, and it is to donate anything that you can donate at Mateen117 and PayPal, where it is at, and also Cash App, Al-Muhaimin Mateen. And again, as I said, only one sister, who's not even a Muslim, donated. She donated $50. Her name is Lulu Love. And make dua, you know what I'm saying? And please, because this is reality that I'm trying to make become a reality. I talked to a brother, and he told me about his experiences with the halfway house and the bad experiences, and But as I shared with the brother after 2 hours, and I respected and I gleaned a lot of information from him as far as the method on the problems that went on, the red flags, the neighbors, and everything. That the biggest problem was that there was really the resources were there, the building was there, but there was no structure. You have to have structure. You have to have structures for programs. You have to have structure for classes. You have to have structure for getting from point A to getting a job, whether it's whatever organization it may be, in the Midlands area or outside the Midlands area. You have to have some hoopties or a van to be able to take them back and forth, and you have to have a period of time to set up for them to acclimate themselves back into society. And then we need assistance with the Muslim Jamaat. Those sisters that may get out, those sisters who will get out, who have nowhere to go. Where do you house them? And and who do they marry as a believer? Is a believing brother who willing to marry them? Is there a believing sister willing to marry one of these brothers? Once we have vetted their characters and their dispositions and their knowledge of the deen and their mental and emotional and social state, as well as their spiritual state, to be worthy of being able to perform nikah with a sister or nikah with a brother. And so we need the assistance for the brother. I know this is the elephant in the room. Brothers and sisters don't want to talk about it. You roll your eyes. You take a deep breath. You shout, but that's the reality behind it. With that being said, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Maghfirullah, subhanallahi, alhamdulillahi, wa la ilaha illallah. Astaghfirullah wa atubu ilayh. Subhanallahi. Assalamu alaikum.